What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Dr. Black, and today I just want to speak to you about how to think. Part of the issue that we're having with the manosphere and their criticism of women, if you're not aware, there's something called a manosphere where they criticize women and say women need to change, that women need to be better, the modern woman is useless or out of touch or crazy. And then there's the black manosphere where they say that black women are the most useless women in America. They're definitely crazy. They're not worth investing in. They're not worth supporting and loving and dating. And if they don't do, basically, if they don't just follow whatever a man says, then who cares? Forget about them. Nobody wants them anyway. So I made my page in response. I made this channel in response to that because I don't agree and I don't support that. And my point is that those positions are extreme positions, that a whole entire group is useless. A whole entire group of people is useless. I call this a stereotype to say, hey, because I've experienced something with one person, that means a whole group of people like that are like that, and that they're all useless equally. And I hate stereotypes. I don't support them. I don't think anyone should. Now, there are women who are in and who support the manosphere. They say, I agree that women are asking too much and women have too high demands and women think too highly of themselves and black women want stuff that they haven't earned and so on and so forth. I feel that it is inappropriate to have a conversation in that way, to start from a premise that is an extreme point and then try to go further extreme and then try to rationalize being extreme. What helps us to avoid being on any extreme? What helps us to avoid trying to justify extremism is if we do something that is well known in the philosophical realm and in the area of education, and it's called critical thinking. Critical thinking demands of self. Remember, I always say 99% of the solutions in your life start with self. So critical thinking demands of self that you think of the other side of your position. You learn views of the other side of your position. You research and you discover other views other than your own on any topic before you settle in on your position. Now, this is very difficult for most conservatives. Conservatives don't necessarily come up with their own ideas. Conservatism is about being traditional, and a tradition has been established. And a lot of people are most comfortable adopting what they were taught versus thinking for themselves. I say that the majority of the world is conservative. The majority of the world likes to hold on to the traditions they were born into and to stick to what they know and their small circle and their small box and their small town and their small area. Even if you live in a big city, a lot of especially come to America, you'll see a lot of people just want to stick to their small area, their lesser known or slightly known information, and they don't want to expand outside that. There are a few people who love going outside their box. There are a few people who can't wait to get outside their box and to explore and to see and do different things. But the majority of people want to stay in their comfort zone, and that's very rational. The problem with that is, if you don't learn critical thinking, you're constantly going to be stereotyping people when someone comes into your comfort zone or into your box that is new and different. You're constantly going to be assuming irrational, ridiculous things. Think about it. This is where racism comes from, right? Some people discovered other people of a different shade and started to make absurd assumptions about them instead of talking to them and looking for how they were common. They said, hey, I'm conservative. I think that I'm great, you're different, so there's something wrong with you for being different, and I'm going to stay in my little box because I'm comfortable thinking that, versus we're different, but are we really different? Is more or less melanin really different? It took us hundreds of years, if not thousands, to discover that added melanin doesn't even have a degree of percent of difference. It doesn't even have a full percentage of difference. A human being who has as much melanin as I do versus a human being who has a tenth of as much melanin in their skin as I do, we don't have 10% difference. We don't have 1% difference. We don't have 1/10 of a percent difference. The difference in our melanin is almost inconsequential. We all have people of all shades have similar blood types, same organs, same bone marrow, same susceptibility to 99.99999% of diseases were affected the same way. It's very rare that your melanin makes a big difference in two different people of different shades. And so getting away from the extremes, we discovered how close we really are, how similar we really are. And I think if men and anyone who promotes this nonsense about women needing to be better to be in society, if we stop pointing a finger at women and saying you have to be better to make me comfortable, but instead look at how similar we are, we would see that feminism as a philosophy is 1,000,000,000% headed in the right direction. It's not perfect. There are extreme feminists who embarrass the rest of us feminists. There are extreme feminists who turn off people who aren't necessarily feminists. But those are few and far between. The average person who looks at the philosophy of feminism and says that feminism is about gender equality and what we can do to get there. Some people will come up with extreme answers on how we get to gender equality. Other people will come up with reasonable, rational answers based on critical thinking on how we get there. But the people who speak the loudest are the ones who say the most absurd things. You know, the extremists in this man versus woman argument, this gender fight, are equally as rational as the extremists who are in MAGA, for example, who are saying that anyone who is brown, is a Latino, needs to get out of America because they're not real U.S. citizens. Like the former president said about the judge who ruled against him, who was a U.S. citizen, but because he ruled against him, he had to have been an other and had to be kicked out. These are the kind of irrational things that we have to speak up against. It's not enough to just say, hey, that former president was a nut job, or hey, I'm not in MAGA, or hey, that's not correct. It's not enough. We have to stand up against extremism. A very common suggestion for the people in the Muslim community, other people who aren't Muslim, say to the people in the Muslim community, hey, when you see an extreme Muslim who's ready to blow himself up to make a point, you as a moderate Muslim need to stand up against him and prevent him from killing himself and others. Well, don't we have to do the same thing as Americans, as people in the Western society who see these men spending their time, instead of looking at how they could be better, pointing a finger at how women need to be better to make them comfortable? Shouldn't we stand up against that? Shouldn't we work to prevent that? Shouldn't we speak out against that? No matter if you agree that there's things that women need to change or don't, shouldn't we stop the extremism, the extreme attacks on women? Is that a healthy way to have a conversation? Absolutely not. And as many suggestions as we can figure out for how to help women be better, we can think of 10 times more for how to make men better. Or we can think for at least as many suggestions for how to make men better if we're going to do that. So why not do that? Let's have a constructive criticism conversation. A conversation where we criticize to get things better versus there's two kinds of criticism, right? We can criticize to make things better, where we have actual solutions. That's constructive criticism. Or we criticize to belittle others, to deflect from our weaknesses, and that's what a lot of people do. And the problem is, in the United States of America, with our First Amendment right to have the right to free speech, we take for granted that your right for free speech does not make your speech right. Let me say that again. Your right to free speech does not make your speech right. You can say something wrong. You can say something idiotic. You can say something foolish. You can say something out of touch, out of place, out of uneducated. So just because you have the right to speak does not mean what you say is right. And so we should focus more on saying what is right, what is correct, what is in line with reality, than we should just be speaking. And so anyone who's in the manosphere, who's promoting the nonsense from the black manosphere, man or woman, is out of touch, because your point isn't that all people can be better in certain ways. Your point is that women need to be better, as if women are the only people on planet Earth. We're all people on Earth. We all can be better, and we should speak about that. But that's not sexy, right? That's not entertaining. And so people are giving all this manosphere nonsense so much exposure because it's entertaining, instead of saying, let's have a mature, intelligent conversation about how to be better as a society. The world has changed since our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents. We have to update the changes. Women do have, thanks to feminism, in large part thanks to feminism, women do have more rights than they did. So what are we going to do? We're going to point fingers at how they're messing up those rights, how they shouldn't have those rights, how those rights are making society worse? Or are we going to have a constructive criticism? Or are we going to have a conversation where we address both sides of the coin, where we address the pros and the cons, where we talk about solutions instead of just talking about, I don't like this about her, I don't like that about her, I don't think women should do this, I don't think women. If you want to have an intelligent, mature, productive conversation, let's do that. I'm your guy. We can talk about solutions for everyone, men, women, and children, hell, the animals too. But if you're an extremist, you're headed in the wrong direction and you're guaranteed to fail. There aren't any extremists who win. Extremists are like firecrackers. They explode and go out and they explode and go out in historic fashion, and they're never to be heard of again, because as an extremist, you're going on a path that's unsustainable. So if you want to uplift, encourage, and improve, if you want to stand up for women and women's rights, you want gender equality, you care about treating people with respect all across the board, join me, subscribe, like, share this video. I'll talk to you next time. One love.